Trust me when I say this is the easiest and most effective way to have an invested audience that connects with your story. It's all about the characters. If you saw my last video, then you know that the 4 main things that you need in a story are character, conflict, world building, and some sort of structure. I started with character because I actually believe that it's basically impossible to have a good story without good, well-developed characters. So in order to write that amazing, captivating story that I'm sure you want to, this is a pretty good place to start. In that video, I said that
I like to think of character as kind of the access point for the audience. It's the lens that they use to see into this world, and it's the vehicle that'll carry them through the plot.
I think you can take it even a step further when you realize that character is also how you move the plot forward and how you emotionally connect with your audience. It's really, whether we realize it or not, the #1 thing that lets us care about a story. Like, if there's a sci-fi story with cool tech but lousy characters, you might still like the tech, but you won't care about the story. You check out or skip ahead to anything that has to do with the tech, and I think that's a real shame, especially if the story had real potential. But we're not going to fall for that pitfall because we are amazing writers who write stories that matter and are impactful and thoughtful. We know that when a reader cares about a character, they also care about what the character cares about. And if the reader connects with the character, they get sucked in and totally immersed. Today I'm going to share with you 6 ways you can take your character to the next level, but first, it's imperative that your characters have a strong want and need. This is foundational. A character's want is their goal. It's the thing that they know they're going after, and it's the motivation that will drive the plot. You know, like in Star Wars, Luke wants to leave Tatooine and train to be a Jedi, and in Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet wants love and respect. Their wants are more conscious and play a big part in guiding their choices throughout the story. A character's need is a realization that they need to have. It's an internal struggle that they need to overcome. It's something that they're unaware of, and coming to that realization is what drives the character growth and their character arc. So Luke needs to overcome his negative emotions that could tempt him to the dark side, and Elizabeth Bennet needs to realize that she too can be prideful and prejudiced, causing her to harshly judge others. The kicker is that these elements, want and need, are interconnected. The character can't get what they want without first learning what they need, and they find what they need as they're going after what they want. So now that we have our foundational layer of character, let's add a little spice. Here are 6 ways to make your character even better. Number 1, make them relatable. Now, you can do this with your character's want. Say if they want to win like a figure skating championship, they'll be relatable to all the figure skaters out there, but if you do it by their need, it's even better. Their need might be finding the courage to stand up to their momager and finally get some work-life balance. In this case, you can relate to anyone who has an overbearing presence in their life, or is finding balance in life, or are looking for a little extra courage. And pretty much everyone has gone through something in their life that can make these things relatable. Trust me when I say this is the easiest and most effective way to have an invested audience that connects with your story. It's all about the characters. You can also make your characters relatable by giving them flaws and fears. If you make your characters fight to achieve their goals and struggle to overcome their misbeliefs and come to their needed realization, it'll make the story more interesting, but it'll also help you relate to your reader because everyone can relate to the universal struggle of working towards something. Number 2, make them aspirational. We love seeing characters with qualities we admire. Even better if you make them relatable, because then the reader can see themselves in the character and by extension the characteristic, and that feels good. That being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that the character has to be morally good. Even a compelling villain has some admirable qualities. They can be tenacious, resourceful, intelligent, witty, persistent, physically strong, etc., etc. Sometimes they even take those good qualities to a negative extreme, like Bond villains are often powerful leaders with ample resources, but taken too far, they become greedy and power hungry. Of course, heroes are aspirational too. Captain America's strong moral code, physical strength and ability, and strategic thinking make him aspirational. Not to mention his golden retriever energy, and he practically embodies "it was the friends we made along the way." Real quick before we get into next way to amp up your characters, if you liked the video so far, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Thanks! Number 3, make them active. Having a character with a strong 1 is a great way to make them an active character. If they have strong goals and desires, they will make decisions that will, hopefully for the character, bring them closer to their goal. A great character is decisive and proactive, but that doesn't mean that every choice in the story has to be made by them. If it was, then all the other characters would be passive by default. Not to mention, that's not how life works. Sometimes your characters are going to have to react to things, but that doesn't make them a reactive character. That just makes them human, or a vampire, or a cyborg, or whatever you're writing about. It makes them normal and relatable. Just make sure that your characters are making decisions where they can. All Is Quiet on the Western Front would be a very different story if those boys were drafted instead of enlisting themselves. Number 4, make them take risks. If a story is being written about a character, there has to be something that makes them interesting. Harry Potter was interesting in the Muggle world because he was a wizard, but once he came into the wizarding world, he would have been just like everyone else if not for his life and experiences as the chosen one. And you can take this idea even further by combining it with the previous point and make it their choices that make them stand out. If they go against the grain, defy expectations, and don't take the easy way out, they're instantly more entertaining than a character who just does what's expected of them. Number 5, give them strong beliefs and misbeliefs. Strong beliefs gives a character conviction, principles, and characterization. Think of how in some iterations, Batman never kills any of the criminals he comes up against. This not only plays into his characterization, but it also emphasizes and gives opportunity to show off his strategic thinking, instead of just using lethal force to get rid of his enemies. Now, I know that Batman doesn't have a no-kill rule in every iteration, but if in your headcanon Batman does have this rule, it can be really jarring to see him carelessly disposing of his enemies. That's because strong beliefs also give characters consistency. Have you ever been reading or watching something and you find yourself screaming, "The writers don't understand this character," because even if the action makes sense in the narrative, it doesn't make sense for the character. There's a good chance that the writer really doesn't understand the character's beliefs. A character's misbeliefs should also be really strong. This might sound a little counterintuitive because the character's misbeliefs will be broken as the story goes on, but we kind of touched on this already before. You want your character to struggle and fight with their old way of thinking, and the way to do that is to have their misbeliefs be strong enough that they cling to them and even slide back to them sometimes, until the character has no choice but to let them go. Or if you're writing a tragedy or a negative story arc, the character might never let them go, to their own detriment. Number 6, make them complex. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ray, doesn't everything you've talked about so far make your characters more complex? And yes it does. But to add an even further layer of depth, you can add complexity to your character through contradiction. Here's what I mean. A character who's a strict teacher and harshly enforces the rules in the name of law and order is one thing. But if that character speeds to and from work and shoplifts her lipstick, that's much juicier. Conflicting values, motivations, roles, and responsibilities can take your character to the next level. If you've been struggling to develop your characters, or you just want to take your characters to the next level, try some of these techniques and let me know in the comments if it helps. If you haven't seen last week's video on the 4 main things you need to have in your story, make sure to check it out because I'm definitely going to be making more in-depth videos about all those concepts. You can also check out my writing playlist, which is where I put all the videos that I make that have to do with writing. Until next time, thanks for watching, guys. Peace!